The fences are down, the power's out, and you're at the bottom of the food chain. Hold on to your butts and prepare for Raptor Ruckus RPG, a rules-light D20 tabletop role-playing game. Raptor Ruckus is survival horror by way of dinosaurs in the early 1990s. You'll be scavenging supplies, counting bullets, and evading carnivores, all while the chaos of the island tests your resolve. Something is hunting you, and rising panic is making your stomach churn. Best case scenario, you crack one of the island's many mysteries, steal an embryo or two, and escape with your skin intact. Worst case, you're still alive when they start to eat you. Back Raptor Ruckus on Kickstarter before September 24th.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse in somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He told me today he found out about something he didn't know about previously, and I was surprised because he literally wrote the book on RPGs. Stu Horvath.
I'm always finding new stuff that I didn't know.
Isn't that wonderful? There's still some whimsy in the world.
I have been doing this for 8 years now, I guess. And granted, the revelations are fewer and farther between these days, but they are still coming. I still regularly find things that I had no idea, like the subject of today's podcast, which will be posted about next year on the feed.
There you go.
Because that's what I've been doing. I've been writing the posts for 2026. So, been working on the new posts for next year. Already 40,000 words in.
Love it.
About halfway done, I think. It's crazy that I write a small book every year and don't really think about it. There's those posts are long, and they're getting longer now that I don't have the Instagram character cap.
Doesn't it feel nice to be free?
It does. I have some 500-word ones this time around that I feel like are pretty good. Anyway, so the revelation, it's from earlier this week. I was doing some D&D stuff. I like in the later era of TSR, after really TSR was dead and had been bought by Wizards of the Coast, but before they were sold to Hasbro, I feel like there's a lot of material there that was overlooked. Just because I think that the general buying public for D&D had been done dirty a little bit by the saturation of the market during second edition with, all their extra rule books and stuff, all that optional stuff. And it really, I feel like it burned out a lot of people. So that when quality stuff was coming out in quantity later, I think that they kind of, they didn't care and they overlooked it. Especially the stuff, I think that people who were sort of bound to campaign settings like Planescape, I was sort of out of it because I was in college and I was trying to be cool. So I wasn't really paying attention to Planescape. But if I was, I would still have been buying Planescape, even though I was broadly uninterested in everything else that D&D was doing. One of the things that D&D was doing at the time, though, was doing a lot more generic material. And I think that this stuff really got ignored just because I think that they had trained the customer base to be interested in campaign settings that were bespoke rather than their homebrew campaigns for having stuff to drop into. But when Wizards of the Coast bought the company, they really were trying to bring D&D back to an earlier kind of experience. You immediately saw sort of a return of the edgy content. Previously at the beginning of second edition, they had removed stuff like assassins and half-orcs and demons and devils. And that stuff came back right away. And, they had been back in Planescape. Devils were Batizu, demons were Tanari. Now, though, they were devils and demons again. We got rid of the ridiculous fantasy name. And I think it's as much as turning them into fantasy creatures sort of made them interesting. I think the names were kind of silly, even though I've internalized them because I'm a Planescape fan. But another thing that was happening was at the end of the decade was they were sort of moving away from this model of event crawls, which is what most of the modules were in the early part of the decade. It was like a series of events sort of plotted linearly. People call this a railroad. I'm not really sure I prefer to call them event crawls because they do often have dungeon crawls or hex crawls incorporated into the larger framework that does give a little bit of non-linearity to them. But overall, the design ethos at the time was like, it's a series of events that you play out in relative order. And a lot of these things end with NPCs fighting and the players sort of spectating. I think they were really frustrating, even though some of them have interesting ideas. I think overall, a lot of those types of scenarios are really frustrating. And I think that when Wizards of the Coast bought D&D, they sort of agreed, because a lot of this new material harkens back to an earlier period of like pure dungeon crawl or hex crawling, and just to sort of return to an older style of game. You know, folks, there's the old school Renaissance revival, all that, but it never really left. It's always kind of been bubbling under the surface. And it really does surprise me how much of this material there was in 2E in the last 2 or 3 years of it, in such close proximity to 3E, which was very much billed as like a return to older school modes of play, which it wasn't, because the system is very much not like
old school. No,
but like the marketing line was that it was, you know, older school. And then there was the sort of the old school reaction that came out of like the fact that that system is not really old school at all, and that's what sparks the actual OSR. But, you know, not the case, right? So, but interesting to me. So what I found out is that there's a famous series of modules, the S series. It's probably dollars to donuts, the one that people will, I think that the most people have their favorite modules in the S series. I could be wrong about that, but it's a heavy-hitting series of adventures. Tomb of Horrors, White Plume Mountain, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, and Lost Caverns of that word that I am not even going to attempt.
Thracia?
No. Sokjanth. I it's funny. Yeah, what is it? It's Sojkanth. Lost Caverns of Sojkanth in 1982. It's funny. Last year, I thought that I had finished all of my posts about first edition products, but then when I was posting for this year, but like getting them on the website and backlinking, I learned that I had not posted about White Plume Mountain and Lost Caverns of Sokjanth.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what I'm starting next year with. But then imagine my surprise when I was doing some of these later generic adventures, and I find out that 2 of them were supposed to be considered part of the S series of adventures.
Really?
Yeah. So it happened. I think that the first one comes out right at the end when TSR is sort of beginning to have financial problems. So it is not a Wizards of the Coast production. And it was about a year after they stopped using module codes, product codes. So it doesn't actually have S5 on the cover or anywhere in the text. I only found this out because when I write about Dungeons and Dragons products, I go to Drive-Thru RPG, and Shannon Appelklein has written little historical sketches for just about every TSR D&D product that they have PDFs for. So I like to check that and see if there's any interesting factoids that I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this case, there was a big one. And I don't know what this is, but he cites the TSR Triviathon as his source. And apparently there's a list of all of the TSR products in the whatever the Triviathon is. I made a decision. I read that word, that name, TSR Triviathon, and I was just like, I'm not going to look that up. I don't want to know. It's just like sometimes you got to leave the Pandora's box alone. But in this thing, there's a list of all the modules. And in that list, these 2 modules are listed as S5 and S6. The first one is the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga from 1995. And the second one is also from 1995, Labyrinth of Madness, which would be S6. They are interesting in this context. I do think that the moment passed for the S series, you know, by the mid 80s, I think that kind of dungeon was really exhausted. They are a little bit more fun housey than I think people have come to appreciate. I feel like the Giants modules sort of set a better template for what was to come. Keep on the Borderlands. I think that like White Plume Mountain is just like pure fun house, and that one's
it's straight up funhouse.
and it's a beautiful mess. You know, it was like Lawrence Schick just took everything that he had written for his homebrew game that was good and put it in one dungeon as like a portfolio piece, really. So it is intentionally not for publication, but they published it anyway. But it was just like a showpiece, and like it's not supposed to make sense. Tomb of Horrors makes sense, but it's sort of like the ultimate punishment dungeon. I think that of these, the narratively, Barrier Peaks is the most interesting and most like it makes the most kind of sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's also really gonzo. Like you don't see another. I feel like you don't see anything Barrier Peaks like almost until, you know, Goodman Games starts doing Dungeon Crawl Classics style stuff. There's a couple things. There's like the Odyssey box set. I can't remember the name of it, where the comet comes and like you could transition your D&D game to an alternity game because like you get into the alien spaceships eventually, and that's sort of on the same level of Barrier Peaks, but it's played much more straight.
Right.
I feel like Barrier Peaks is just like as much as like it makes a certain narrative sense, it's still very tongue in cheek and silly at heart, even though the trappings of it are pretty D&D serious. And then
that's kind of stuff that makes it fun, man. You know.
Yeah. And then Soj Kanth is again, I feel like a lot of people like it and it's good. But I think that the real star of that is the monster manual that comes with it, basically. It's like the first one, Tomb of Horrors and Barrier Peaks come with these illustration booklets. White Plume Mountain comes with nothing extra. But S4 comes with a booklet that's basically a monster manual expansion that would later go into basically the bulk, the foundational bulk of Monster Manual 2. And like there's a lot of great monsters in that, and I think at the time people were just psyched for new monsters. It's basically just a there's like a small wilderness section, and then you have like a series of linked caves, and they're not like, there's no real narrative here. Like, yeah, there's a vampire at the end, there's a boss fight, and it's connected in some loose, vague way to Greyhawk lore, but like it's not narratively interesting or emergently narratively interesting the way Barrier Peaks is. And it really is just a series of improbable encounters that are really well designed, linked, you know, one after another in a series of caves. Like it's fine, but it's not like a particularly interesting dungeon to me. But that's sort of the legacy, and I feel like just design ethos has moved on from that as the 80s progressed.
Right.
And these Baba Yaga and Labyrinth of Madness don't feel, I mean, there's a decade and a half between these things, and you can see because of that there's differences that are hard for me to sort of explain, but they do feel different. They feel like their own thing, even though they are sort of hitching their wagon to this older series. Baba Yaga is it's weird. It's interesting. So basically the conceit is that Baba Yaga and her hut, you know, travel the plains, and they shift from world to world for whatever reason that Baba Yaga is doing. The hut itself has been in D&D for basically since the beginning. I think it's in Eldritch Wizardry that it first gets introduced as an artifact. Baba Yaga herself is not detailed in mainline D&D until this module. And basically, once she gets there, stuff happens. And so you have a bunch of adventure hooks to drag you into exploring the hut. And basically, you could go into the hut, you do your thing, and you leave. And there's no real boss fight. Baba Yaga is sort of ambivalently evil. Like, she's evil, but like she doesn't care about you. You're never gonna fight her. certainly not win.
Yeah, that's kind of an uphill battle, like you're not really walking away from that scrap.
Yeah, and it sort of becomes like almost like a snake pipe hollow, where this dungeon exists and lots of people have reasons for having you requesting that you explore it, but there's no it's not like you're not ridding the world of a great evil or coming to a you don't have to destroy the thing. It's not like there's nothing like that. One of the hooks is give the girl who's stuck inside her teddy bear or doll or whatever. So on the narrative level, it's very different from everything else in the series.
For sure.
The dungeon itself is pretty good. It's very weird. It's like the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside.
Love it.
She's, from traveled through time and space and other dimensions. So there's all sorts of weird stuff in there. And it plays... I think that the author was really trying to find a feasible frame for a funhouse dungeon. And I think in that it is a success. I don't know if I would really want to run this.
Right.
It does feel a little, I don't know. It just doesn't excite me.
Does not spark joy.
Yeah, it just doesn't excite me. And Baba Yaga's involved. I feel like it should be more weird. She's weird. She flies around in either a cauldron or a mortar and pestle. And she's got wooden legs. She's got the chicken leg house. All that stuff is really weird. It doesn't the weirdness of her dungeon doesn't really kind of fold in with the weirdness of the folklore for me.
Right. I can see that. I can actually completely see that.
Now, the other one, Labyrinth of Madness, is a doozy. It's a Mont Cook dungeon. And, wow, they claim in the text that it is probably the most difficult dungeon crawl in TSR's publishing history. And I think that they might be right.
Oh, so it's not hyperbole then?
I don't think so. I'd have to play it. But there's a couple things that make me think that, this would be, and I'm not sure that's a compliment.
Yeah.
So, so this one is much more consciously trying to emulate the S series. It feels a lot more like the S series. It has an illustration book included that has room illustrations to kind of give players hints and also add to the immersion. Lots of traps, lots of deadly puzzles, lots of classic monsters. It's almost exclusively Monster Manual 1 monsters. Lots of I'm so clever kind of tactics from one of the first encounters. And I think that it says a lot about the rest of the module. One of the first encounters has the party going up against a bunch of trolls, which is fine. Trolls or whatever.
Yeah.
Classic monster. But they're armed with these long poles that have glass globes at the end of them. And inside the glass globe is a black pudding. So they hit the players with these bulbs. The bulbs shatter, and then you have a black pudding stuck on you. Is this incredibly clever? Even a brilliant tactic? Yes. If you did that to me as a player, would I be
so
extremely aggravated with you? Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Do I think that this is a conceivable thing for trolls to do? No. Even if they are equipped by a mad titan who's running this labyrinth, I just think it's one of those things. It's oh man, that's a really good idea. But it's also stupid. I don't like that. It's sort of it isn't a Tomb of Horrors style gotcha trap, but I do feel like it is a little mean spirited.
Something like that I think works better in a story. To me, you're reading a story, and if you're reading a story and the characters come up against that, you might be like, fuck, that's cool.
Right.
You're like, oh man, but then when you are in a dungeon and it's your buddy Steve running a game for you, you're like, oh god damn it.
And there is a place for that kind of gotcha mechanic, but I just don't think that the underlying fiction supports that kind all the time.
Yeah,
and you have to be really kind of judicious with it. So there's that, and there's a lot of that. There's also the fact that dungeons traditionally are flat. They're flat. They're two-dimensional spaces because our main interface with them is graph paper or the printed map.
Right.
Isometric maps exist, but if you have ever tried to run a scenario that leans heavily on isometric maps, they're very difficult, especially and you can't model that easily with varying elevations on your table. Flat maps are easier to play. And because of that, even though that's not realistic, underground spaces are never flat.
Right.
Even houses aren't always flat. But because of the reality of games, dungeons in play tend to be flat. Not this one. It has a lot of very three-dimensional architectural spaces. I find those to be really cool and interesting. Castle Ravenloft is a three-dimensional space in its initial debut, and it works. I don't think it works here. I think because like Castle Ravenloft works because it's a castle and you're asking players to sort of interface with their idea of a castle. So they could kind of intuit the space in a way that like the weird ass dungeon that you're in is baffling. So you're not going to be thinking about, is there like a loft up in that space? Like, are there, different levels in this room that I'm not seeing because I'm on, and it makes it difficult for the DM. Like, do you signal that? Do you not signal that? How do you manage traversal through like a gallery style room that has 3 levels in it, a high roof, and all of that stuff just makes it harder to run. It's just a pure like how do I do this? It's more difficult than it needs to be. Then on top of that, there's something that is actually pretty brilliant. There is a series, and the players are told this ahead of time, and it's not exactly a mystery. There are 20 sigils in the dungeon, little symbols that they're going to find and activate. They have to be activated in order, which is sort of the tricky part. But the dungeon isn't a jerk about that. Like, it's not like a video game puzzle where like you're like, well, okay, I just have to like keep trying. Like, it tells you when you have the first one, and if you have something out of order, it just doesn't work until you find the ones that are in order. I think that 20 is too many.
20 is a lot.
20 is a lot. It is a big dungeon, and I can see why you wanted to put more in there, but that's also a lot to manage.
Yeah,
I feel like a smaller number would have worked better.
Coming from punk rock, I can always tell you less is more. Leave them wanting more.
So anytime you touch a sigil and it activates and it's in order, you get like a little glowing magical tattoo. And these act as sort of keys for the environment. There's stuff in the dungeon, for lack of a better explanation, does not exist until you have the associated sigil. So that could be anything from a treasure chest, a monster, a door, all sorts of stuff in the environment that just isn't there until you have the appropriate sigil. I think that's super cool. It's such a great idea, but like I said, in terms of the size of the space and the number of sigils, I feel like it is unwieldy. I think that is the biggest barrier to completion, coupled with just the inherent dangers of the dungeon. I think that if you take the sigils out entirely, it becomes a pretty by the numbers straightforward dungeon crawl. I think that the sigils is what really heightens this to a level where I'm just like, yeah, maybe this is the most difficult Dungeons and Dragons official dungeon that was ever created. But like, is it earning it? You know what I mean? Like earning it because of this interesting layer of mechanics that I think goes too far. So I think that it does earn that title, but it's sort of like there's an asterisk. And I think that Mont Cook, in commenting on this, is sort of like acknowledged that it's sort of like a little too much. It needed to be dialed back just a little bit. But it is super cool, and it really does, like, more than Baba Yaga's Hut. I think that it does sort of capture an earlier spirit of the game. Again, it's different from the original 4. in some way that's hard to quantify. But it's still I'm just shocked. I'm just shocked that there were 2 more S1s, and I didn't know it until today.
What a world, man. What a world. But then again, with the advent of artificial intelligence and AI and everything, it's really become impossible over the last couple years to search for anything and to get proper research done because you can't find shit.
That's true. That's true.
So I'm going to give you a pass on that one, good buddy.
All right.
Not just because we're pals, but because I know it's hard out on those research streets.
Those hard knock streets.
Those hard knock streets of file cabinetry and microfiche.
Typing on my computer in my office, which is comfortably maintained temperature, and you never know what might be lurking around the corner.
You never know, man. What fear lurks in the hearts of man.
Yeah. But yeah.
So that feels like a pretty good stopping point to me. Do you have any final thoughts on all of this?
They're cool. Are they buy them cool? I don't know. I hate the cover for Baba Yaga. I think that's my final thought. It's an easily cover, and there's a couple adventurers in the foreground, and they just look like totally unfazed by the fact that the chicken-legged house is coming at them. But then making it weirder is that Easley has put an inset of Baba Yaga's head into the painting sort of behind the hut.
Right.
But what happens is it looks like that head is sort of attached to the hut and looking over its back shoulder. I hate it. It would have been such a cooler picture if A, Baba Yaga wasn't in it, and B, those guys actually were paying attention, and then you'd have a cool cover. But
yeah, I'm not saying we should draw someone actually actively shitting their pants on the cover of a module, but maybe a little surprise. Even if it's yeah, I told you not to throw me a surprise party, but you did it anyway, so I'm going to pretend I'm surprised, even though I know everyone is in that room.
Confusion would be great too. I mean, it's a house with chicken legs.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've always said that about adventures, though. Yes, I get it. You're supposed to be heroic, all this other stuff. But if you are a level 0 adventurer and you go out and you see a thing that has an eye where it's not supposed to be, or a house with chicken legs, you may be thinking twice about your life choices.
I feel like at any given moment in a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, it's within the rights of the players to just be like, I ain't doing this anymore. This is too weird for me. I'm going back to town.
I think that's a completely valid thing.
The too many eyes rule. It's that thing's got way too many eyes. I'm out.
I draw the line at 20. That's it. But in the reality of the situation, no one ever runs. I've only I've been playing D&D now for 20 years, and in 20 years I've only seen people run twice. And then one of them was me because my entire party was dead. But and not my fault, by the way. That time it was not my fault. Anywho, this has been another amazing adventure. This has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on vintagerpg.com, where there are hundreds and hundreds of posts about all of your favorite and unfavorite RPG products. We're just waiting for you to read them.
Very cool. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I'm on the Blue Sky. I'm on the Instagram. Don't think of anything to promote this week, but I will tell you, if you back the Days of Future Fairhaven backer kit, by the time you hear this episode, the PDF should be in your hands. So that's very exciting. My first full-length book that I've laid out. It's 80-something, 90 pages all in. I forgot. I always miscount with the cover, but yeah, it's a full ass book. So it is solid as hell. You're gonna have some fun playing it. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintageRPG. Stu puts out a little behind the scenes look at some stuff that's going on. We have, for as little as $1 a month, you get episodes early, sometime between like Friday and Sunday, depending on when we record them in the week. At the $5 tier, you can get in on my monthly game. I run a different game every month, and I also have an ongoing, which is like 3 or 4 weeks in, going strong, correspondence by email campaign for 1-900 Fantasy, which is pretty sweet. At the $10 tier, you can get in on my game and Stu's legendary, deadly West Marches campaign that's going on 3 years now. No signs of stopping, even with all the bodies that are dropping. So check us out, patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Thanks for listening. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Schaefer Brown. Edited by R. Alex Murray. Check us out at vintagerpg.com.